Let's talk a little bit about why we are here and who NOAH is. This is me sitting at the Four Seasons 6 months ago. I felt like in the movie Lost in Translation. We thought doing a conference in San Francisco is much easier than it actually played out to be. When we told people that we wanted to do something here, everybody liked the idea, but a lot of people were skeptical that A, we could bring Europeans over to the US, and B, US participants coming to see the European companies presenting. With a little help of Cassie Johnson from Consort, a local PR agency, we got the viral effect, the tip over, or the so-called inflection point reached, and we have today 600 participants who came to our conference here, the first NOAH conference in the Valley, which made us incredibly proud. So, today we are proud to be here. This is me and my two co-founders of NOAH, and for us, being in the Valley is like landing on Mars. First of all, everybody said it's impossible to get here. It felt really far away. The Valley is probably the hottest space in the internet segment, as hot as Mars, and eventually we feel incredibly proud to be here. Now, who is NOAH? Actually, we are conference organizers by hobby. Our main job is M&A, and we are involved in some of the most prominent European internet M&A transactions. My partners and I, we were all working for Lehman Brothers up to the bitter end, and eventually decided to continue our jobs, but not in a large institution, but on our own, as we saw a vacuum in the internet M&A space in Europe. Most recently, we advised Fotolia on its 50% sale to KKR, which was probably the largest internet buyout deal to date, and it was also a debt deal, a recap, and that clearly put NOAH on the map. We got a nice price for that, and you could see me here proud with the prize, which was from Real Deals in Europe, where we won the Private Equity Award for 2012 as the best financing advisor in the German-speaking languages. Now, why are we here? And why do we think NOAH should go to San Francisco, and why did we go this way? Well, there are actually quite a few reasons. First of all, we love the internet, and when you love something, you're passionate, you really want to go to the source, and a lot of people have the view that the source of internet is in the US, and we are at the Mecca in the Valley in San Francisco. A lot of clients ask us to bring the conference here. They said, well, you have done it in London, and in London our conference is now the 4th year, but why don't you go to the US? So we listened to them, and then there's a very simple reason. There's a rumor that some Americans don't even have a passport and don't like to travel, so we thought, if you don't come to us, we ought to come to you. So Europe matters. We think that there are around 100 European companies which are valued over 200 million euros, which is equivalent to like almost $260 million. Here you see actually a selection of those companies. And we think about innovation, when we think about leadership, let's also think about Europe. Here we have some examples of some European companies. Some of them on this slide are actually presenting today, who have managed to break into new areas, new segments, and probably some of them perceived as a US play have actually their origins in Europe. So this page was very easy to put together, and all of these companies are very sizable and have been executed extremely well. Now, when we talk to investors, investors always ask us, hey, what's hot in Europe? Well, there are a lot of things hot in Europe, as we know from the previous slide. However, this hotness is not coming at the same price. Europe is much cheaper than the US. So when we look at current public company valuations, the European companies are trading at a discount of almost 50% on a relative valuation level, which makes it a quite attractive place to look at. especially when you put it in context to the invested capital, which are slides coming later. So let's talk about Europe. Well, Europe isn't Europe. It's a very diverse space, and as we unfortunately experience from the current problems around the euro currency, it's very diverse in terms of the country's health and the economy, the population size, cultural differences, and the involvement or development of internet. Somebody said yesterday that the UK has a 15% share of retail being transacted online, while countries like Italy or Spain are probably in the low single-digit space. So Europe is very diverse. There are some very large cities, but not as large as in Asia, for example, but London is leading with Berlin, Madrid, and some others coming. We are also very close to the Eastern European countries by geographic nature, and Russia is actually rumored to become the biggest internet market in Europe. Now let's do some comparison. We like comparison because when we do that, it's kind of eye-opening. Now, we studied a few companies, prominent companies, public companies in the US and Europe, and we tried to understand which of those have raised capital and what are their origins. And if you look at the US universe, the first thing which became obvious is, wow, the US public market universe is actually 3 times the size, a little bit more, than in Europe. Now, the number of companies which went public recently in the US clearly helped. When we look at the sizes of companies and their valuation, the average market cap in the US is much higher than in Europe. If we look at the share price performance, however, it hasn't been as great in the US, and the European companies, at least in the public market, have performed quite well. I guess it doesn't astonish us too much, as we have seen always these mind-blowing valuations pre-IPO done for some prominent hyped US companies, and it seemed to me that in the US, the private market is valuing internet companies much higher than in Europe. However, on the public side, the investors in Europe actually could take a benefit of that, while in the US, the growth post-IPO and valuation has been relatively modest with 14%. Let's talk about venture capital and funding. Quite interestingly, the average of our little target group, the average capital raised in the US was almost $400 million, while in Europe, the average capital raised was 70. In fact, in Europe, you will find a lot of companies who haven't raised any capital. You remember the deal we were just talking about, Fotolia, which KKR bought 50% in a leverage recap. They have never raised a penny, and they're around a 50 million EBITDA run rate. So you can see not always raising capital in Europe needs to bring a success. It could be also that companies are doing very well on their own. You can also see the effect of returns and attractiveness to invest when you look at VC money raised in percentage current market cap. So in the US, the VC money raised in percent of market cap is almost 4 times higher than in Europe, suggesting that in Europe there's a lot of return. So listening to all these presentations now or through our web service later, the recordings, should be worth your time. Now let's talk about valuation a little bit, and that's the way how we look at it. And what we see is that companies are in different stages. So sometimes you only have a management team. They may be serial entrepreneurs, like for Branch Out as an example. Then once this management team has got funding, either their own money or they decided to go quite slow, they develop a technology. Once they have a technology and it's up and running, and Spotify is a prominent European example, everybody knew, wow, this is an amazing technology. They then go to users and KPIs. Then at some stage they generate revenues and then they generate EBITDA and they become a leader. And we rank all the companies we work with on this scale. And what we see sometimes happening in the US versus Europe, that some companies are just jumping a few steps ahead, which is quite interesting. We also know some prominent people. I think Yossi Vadi from Israel, the father of ICQ, said, oh, don't focus on revenues, it's a distraction. So there are examples how to be at different points in the value chain. Now, we needed to look at something, right? I mean, it was so mind-blowing the IPOs which happened recently, Groupon, Zynga, Facebook, and HomeAway, and we put it also in context to the capital raised. Now, those 4 companies have raised the most in terms of venture capital or pre-IPO fundings. However, their share price performance hasn't been as successful as their pre-IPO fundraisings. Ocado, by the way, a European example, and please don't be misguided by the colors, should be all green on the left and red on the right. Just want to differentiate Europe and the US, but Ocado similarly raised almost $500 million, and their share price performance hasn't been that great. Now, what does that mean? Well, I guess it means, first of all, that there are some companies who see huge valuation growth pre-IPO. So the companies who are presenting here, most of them are private, and it's incredibly interesting to put focus on private companies. And our objective is, by the way, at our conferences in London, in San Francisco, wherever, to bring you the interesting private companies you haven't heard of, a research analyst isn't covering. Now, here are some stories of high-profile venture-backed European companies. You saw earlier a list of companies which we believe are European leaders who explored a new segment or leading a market by new technology. So those are the ones to watch out for. They raise a lot of money as a VC-backed business, and they're basically growing at very strong rates. So while you have these sometimes even billion-plus venture capital rounds in the US, we actually also have some large VC rounds, and this is ranked by money raised. Here you have an overview of financial investors who came to our conference in London. We see NOAH not only as an opportunity for venture capitalists to find out about interesting companies or strategics to find out what company would fit how strategically, but we also give a guideline to the companies presenting to find investors. That's it. Thank you very much.